Hello, this is Steve Shaw, NCAA Football Secretary Rules Editor, and today in our video we're going to look at the rule changes for the 2018 season. So let's get straight into it. Now, a change that actually occurred last year but is going to take effect this year, and this is one that's so important that we are very consistent in, and that is knee pads must be covered by the pants and the knee pads must completely cover the knees. Now, let's talk about what we mean by that. Any knee pad that comes to the top of the knee obviously does not meet this, and then we're going to send that player out of the game. And basically our process is if the player's not wearing his equipment properly, then he's got to go out of the game, very similar to helmet off, although we are not going to stop the clock. He's got to go out of the game. He must stay out of play, and then if he gets his equipment corrected, then he can come back in the game. Now, we all know that the player can come back in without missing a play if the coach or the team takes a charged team timeout and the player makes his equipment legal. So be aware of that. Obviously, you can't do that on an injury, but certainly when it relates to equipment, helmet off, if the team calls a timeout and they correct the problem, the player can come back in. So now let's move into actual rules that will impact play on the field. Now, the first one we're going to talk about is the play clock after touchdown and free kicks. And really, this is an emphasis to keep the game moving. And I should start it with a thank you for the good work last year around halftime. I think we all did a very good job managing the halftime. And then I think our mechanics were a lot more consistent around restarting the clock after first downs and, when runs go out of bounds. When the center judge is spotting the ball, we're restarting the clock irrespective of substitutions or whatever. So I think that really attributed the halftime and our mechanics to actually speeding the game up. And nationally, the game was 4 minutes shorter last year than in previous years. So good work there. And these rule changes here are designed to, again, keep the game moving. And so these two, after a touchdown now, the play clock will be set to 40 seconds, and the goal is to expedite the try. If you have a situation where the team wants to go for two or they want to relocate the ball for whatever reason, then the coach has got to let you know before the play clock gets to 25. Once it's at 25 and counting down, then it's too late. He cannot relocate the ball. Now, he can always call timeout to do that, but make sure our coaches understand if they want to relocate the ball, they've got to do it before the play clock gets under 25 seconds. And then same thing following a free kick. So this is, a normal kickoff or a free kick after safety. The play clock will be set to 40 seconds after the return in order to restart play more quickly. So I think these will be two changes that will help us. Very similarly here, if there's a touchback on the kickoff and the coach wants to relocate the ball to left center, for example, then he has to let us know before the play clock gets to 25. Now, probably the biggest change in our game this year is around the free kick and allowing a fair catch opportunity for the receiving team. So we know normally by rule that when a Team B player makes a fair catch, the ball becomes dead where it's caught, and it belongs to Team B at that spot. So now we have an exception that on a free kick, if a Team B player makes a fair catch behind their 25-yard line, and they complete the catch, the ball will belong to Team B at its own 25-yard line. So it's technically not a touchback, but the ball will belong to Team B at the 25. And so I think this is a player safety situation where what we've seen in the data is that on touchback plays, there are far fewer injuries, especially upper body injuries, than on a regular kickoff play. We made some changes a few years back to really encourage touchbacks. So this is another step on that journey to make the kickoff play a safer play. So as we talked about before, so after they make a fair catch, remember now if they make and complete the fair catch, we're going to go to a 40-second play clock, and the ball will be put in play midway between the hash marks on the 25. But again, the offense can relocate the ball before the play clock gets to 25 seconds. Once it's at 25 and counting down, then the coach would have to call timeout to relocate the ball. So we have a change in Rule 8 concerning the try. And basically, as we know today, if a touchdown is scored on the last play of the game, we're not going to attempt the try unless the points would affect the outcome of the game. And basically what that means, if either team is ahead by 1 or 2 points or it's tied, we're going to do the try. And this change is an exception to that, and it allows the scoring team, if they're ahead by 1 or 2 points, then they have the option to forego the try. So basically, if they score on the last play of the game and there's a celebration, the coach can just say, hey, we don't want to work the try. We'll move on and end the game. So let's look to that head coach immediately. In these type situations, the coach still has the opportunity if for some reason, their kicker is trying to set a record or whatever, they have the option to play the try, but I think most of the time they'll forego the try. So I think this is a good change that'll help us. Now, significant changes in blocking below the waist. So we're going to look at some video, but before we do, let's just kind of work through the changes. So first of all, there was no change to linemen with their initial position completely inside the tackle box. So they're allowed to block from, below the waist from any direction. Obviously, they can't clip, until the ball leaves the zone. So no change there. But now the first subtle change is all other Team A players, if they're not in that group, if they block below the waist, it must be directed from the front. And so we had a little further clarification that, our 10-2 is further defined as forward of the area of concentration of the player being blocked. But I also want to call attention to directed from the front. So it doesn't just mean that they block them in the front of the knees. The block must be directed from the front. And the intent of that is the player can defend himself if it's directed from the front. So basically, the interior lineman can block below the waist from any direction. Everybody else has to block, if they block below the waist, from the front. Now, there are 3 exceptions, and the first exception is probably the biggest. Team A players cannot block below the waist if the block occurs 5 yards or more beyond the neutral zone. So now once the player gets downfield, no blocking below the waist, but that still allows the offense to block against a corner that comes up in run support, or if there's a bubble screen. If it's within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, then the offense can block there. Now, players outside the tackle box at the snap or any time after the snap or in motion at the snap, they cannot block below the waist back toward the initial position of the ball at the snap. So basically, this is our crackback rule, and that's really not changed. And even if a player lines up inside the tackle box, but he arcs and go outside the tackle box, if he comes back in, then he cannot block low back toward the original position of the ball. And then finally, once the ball has left the tackle box, a player cannot block below the waist back toward his own inline. So the peel back block is still not allowed. So let's look at some plays that illustrate this. Now, this first play we're going to look at, you're going to see number 86. He is catching a piece of that tackle. So we consider him as a back inside the tackle box. And now he's going to go back toward the original position of the ball and block low. Now, last year, this was a legal block, and he's still allowed to block below the waist back toward the original position of the ball. But remember, it must be from the front. So last year, this was a legal block. Now, because that is clearly not from the front, that is a foul for illegal block below the waist. Now, the second play, very similar situation. Here's a player, catching a piece of that tackle. He's going to come back toward the original position of the ball and block low. Now, may not have been designed this way. This is actually legal. Now, this block is actually from the front. The player approaches number 10 from the front, and he blocks him in the front. So this, although it may not have been designed that way, last year was legal. This year would be legal too, but only because he did get number 10 from the front. And then finally, here's another where you have an H-back that's going to come across the formation. So as you can tell, he's catching a piece of that tackle. Now he's going to go across the formation, and he's going to block low from the side. And so now he's not blocking back toward the original position of the ball, but if he blocks low in this situation, it has to be from the front. And this is from the side, and that would be a foul under this year's rule. Now, the other big change, as we talked about earlier, you're going to watch our right guard, number 64. He's going to go downfield and block low, and he's clearly beyond 5 yards from the line of scrimmage. So this now would be a foul, even if that block is from the front. And then finally, as a reminder on our defense, now they can block low 5 yards behind and beyond the line of scrimmage. And here's a play where you're going to see a defensive player who is going to go through an offensive player. He's going to go low, and he's not in that 5 yard window. And so this would be a foul, even last year and this year. Now, we've got some verbiage changes around leaping, and this is going to tie together both field goal plays, field goal extra points, and actually leaping the shield situations. The language is going to be very much the same. So starting with field goal extra point plays, it's a foul if the defensive player moves forward and tries to block a field goal or a try by leaving his feet and leaping into the plane directly above the frame of the body of an opponent. And we all know it's not a foul if the player was aligned in a stationary position within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage when the ball snapped. In that part, he can leap, do whatever. But if the guy runs forward and he tries to block the field goal by leaping, if he gets into the plane directly above the frame of his opponent, then it's a foul. And very similarly, on punt plays, situations inside the tackle box, leaping the shield, same language now, that if they leap into the plane directly above the frame of the body of an opponent, it is a foul. So let's look at a few plays. We're going to start with a couple punt plays. This first one you're going to see, clearly that's a leaping foul as he tries to leap and clearly gets above the frame of the player, of his opponent that's trying to block him, and so that's a foul. Here's another situation where we see a player leap. He's going to leap right over and get into the plane above the frame of his opponent, and that's a foul. Now, we also have a situation where if a player leaps through the gap, it's not a foul. And here's a great example of a player being able to leap through the gap. This is not a foul. He does not get into the plane directly above his opponent. So this is a good play, legal play, and that's how you can leap between players in the shield. Now, here is the field goals extra points. We see this player running forward, and clearly he's going to leap, try to get over, and it's a player safety situation. As you can see, very dangerous play, and this is a foul. This still is a foul. And then this is probably the play that got a lot of this conversation started, and the question a few years ago, was this a foul or not? Now, this clearly would be a foul because he goes through the plane above the frame of his opponent without a doubt. And so now, if this guy runs forward, this is a foul. And we thought we'd put in one play where a player is aligned in a stationary position within 1 yard of the line of scrimmage. He can really leap and do whatever. So you'll see this player here. He's aligned within a yard of the line of scrimmage, and he's going to leap. So this is a legal play. No issue with this. Now, as far as our penalty enforcement, we're linking together field goal enforcement and extra point enforcement. So now on a successful field goal, Team A has the option. They can still cancel the score and have the penalty enforced from the previous spot. But now they'll have the option to accept the score, and penalties for personal fouls and unsportsmanlike conduct can be enforced on the succeeding kickoff or from the succeeding spot in extra periods. So this is a change that should make our penalty enforcement a little easier. Now quickly we'll hit a few editorial changes. The first is around a forward pass. So we removed the arm from the situation. So now any intentional forward movement of the hand with the ball firmly in control of the passer starts the forward pass. So now it's not the hand or arm, it is the hand only. Now, this is a change in Rule 343 around penalty enforcement. So now we remove the word only. So if the game clock is stopped, before it was only to complete a penalty. So now if the game clock is stopped to complete a penalty for a foul by the team ahead in the score, or either team if the score is tied, inside the last 2 minutes of the half, the clock will start on the snap. Obviously, the option of the offended team comes in case they do not want it to wait to the snap. There was an editorial change also in a loose ball out of bounds, and the old rule really read that a ball not in player possession, other than a kick that scores a field goal, is out of bounds when it touches the ground, a player, a game official, or anything else that is out of bounds or that is on or outside the boundary line. Now, we are changing the word possession to control, and you say, why is that important? Well, here's a play from our national championship game that we can look at, and it illustrates this editorial change very well. So here you're going to see a situation, a ruling on the field of a completed pass, but replay is going to come in and take a look at this. Now, they actually let this play stand, but if we go back and look at it, what you're going to see is the defender is actually going to be standing out of bounds, and now he's touching the ball. Well, why is that significant? Well, the receiver, even though he's got firm control of the ball, has not got a foot down or a hand down or any body part down, so he does not have possession, although he has control. So technically, this could have been an incomplete pass in our old rule, but now he'll have firm control. I think everybody sees this as a good catch, and now by rule, this will be a good catch because he had firm control all the way down. Now, make sure you take note that we had some significant verbiage changes in roughing the passer. Really here, just trying to modernize the rule and really link it to what we're calling today. So make sure you review this, go through it, have good conversations about it. So I hope this video has been helpful, and best of luck to all of us as we prepare for a great 2018 season. Best of luck.